Good evening, my dear friends. Are you here for another story? Then come on in. Have a drink, a bite to eat, and settle in by the fire. For tonight, I have quite the tale to tell. Are you ready? Good. Then let us begin. Before we hop into tonight's story, be sure to check out my new Patreon page at patreon.com/phantasmalpoppy. Even giving $1 a month gives you early access to all of my YouTube content, plus other bonuses. Help me out, and I'll be able to bring you more spooky stories more often. Now, let's get started. Omens. Superstitions. Old wives' tales. Whatever you call them, you cannot deny the power that they hold over our lives. How many of us catch ourselves from stepping on a crack in the sidewalk, purely because the old adage of "step on a crack and you'll break your mother's back" was driven into our heads during recess in our early childhood? How close have you come to walking beneath a ladder leaned up against the side of a building, only to change course at the last minute? Do you still snatch up pennies from the ground whenever you see them on heads? Or do you wear a particular pair of socks on a first date in hopes that their very threads will bring the evening to a happy conclusion? Whenever your grandmother places her marker in a certain way upon her bingo board, or your Uncle Demetrius wears his hat a certain way at a football game, they are mirroring behaviors that our ancestors have done for generations. While there may be no scientific proof that the next ball will be that elusive G6, or the Steelers are going to come out ahead because of one fan's clothing choices, it still does not prevent these people from making correlations between what may have been mere coincidence with something they did, or that happened to them. Before the days of meticulous scientific studies, all we had was trial and error. If something just so happened to occur more than once around a particular event, it was lauded as the truth, regardless of how outlandish that it may have seemed. For early Appalachians eking out a living among the hills and mountains of Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and so on, some of these omens could mean a divine message for your life or your death. So gather round, my friends, and listen to another of Phantasmal Poppy's true tales. Tonight, I give you egg yolks. This story happened to me several years ago, shortly before I was due to move halfway across the United States and leave behind the mountains of my youth for good. I was about a week away from my initial trip to my current state when this happened. At the time, I was working in a small grocery store in the deli, or at least that was shorter than saying all of what it really was. Deli, kitchen, hot bar, cold salad bar, and cheese case. Honestly, for all of the crazy that I saw on that job, I really did enjoy it. My favorite part was cooking. Once the hot bar dishes were out, I had to monitor them so I could have enough time to make backup dishes to replace what was sold or left on the bar for a certain length of time. In addition, there were certain less perishable items that my department had to make and put out to sell in shelves on the main sales floor. The main thing? Cornbread muffins. Now, I know I'm already going to offend some of you Texans and Louisianans listening when I say we use white cornmeal. And I'll probably offend the rest of you who are used to actual good homemade cooking when you learn I didn't have lard or good bacon grease to put in them either. No, I'm sad to say, even though we called them homemade, these muffins were not the sort you'd find on your granny's table. No, these are the sort we'd make for you folks from Ohio who didn't know what a real cornbread muffin tasted like. Sorry to poke fun at you Northerners, especially when I'm out in the Midwest myself now, but this is like comparing imitation crab with the sort of sea noms you haul up from the Tillamook. I'm still learning that barbecue can be something besides sweet, if y'all want to have something to joke back with. Well, it was one of these designated cornbread muffin making days when this event started. I had just set the last of my ingredients on the table when in walks a lady we'll call Anne. Anne had worked in my department for a time, but shortly after I started working there was some drama between her and another coworker that resulted in Anne taking the option to move to another department. Even after the other employee left and Anne had a chance to come back, it was clear that she was a lot happier where she was. Still, since my department was next to the break room, it wasn't unusual for someone to pop their head in for a chat. This day, Anne comes in and begins talking to my manager and me about her daughter. Apparently, her daughter was very far along with the second of Anne's grandbabies, and Anne was very excited about it. As Anne chatted away and she and my boss began guessing which day Anne's daughter would pop, I started putting the ingredients together to make cornbread. Then, I cracked open the first egg. I'm sure some of you have found eggs that have a bit of blood in them with the yolk. It's uncommon, but not unnatural. However, having an egg yolk that was a good fifth full of blood, that was more than I had ever seen. And it was especially ominous that the first egg I chose to crack happened to be that way while Anne was talking about her pregnant daughter. I'm not one to believe in superstitions, but that one gave me pause. My manager just happened to see it too. Thankfully, Anne did not, and she soon left the deli. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering about why this would make anyone freeze up, other than over the fact that it might have been a bit gross. There's an old superstition that revolves around seeing blood in an egg, meaning impending death. I called my then friend and later roommate, who I was about to visit, and told her what happened. She had heard the superstition before, too, but another version of it. In her family, also partly from my region, seeing blood in an egg foretold problems with a birth, complications, miscarriage, stillbirth. Of course, this unnerved me a bit. I mean, out of all times for this to happen, why, when Anne was talking about her soon-to-be-in-labored daughter? My manager, too, agreed it was very creepy. I tried to shake the whole thing off and go on about my work, but the sharp contrast of red on gold kept coming back to me. And I soon found out why. A few days later, on the very day before I had to head off on my journey, I walked into the kitchen to find Anne sobbing to my manager. Of course, I was horrified, and one look at my manager told me everything I needed to know before Anne even told me what it was about. That blood on the egg seemed to be much more than a ruptured blood vessel. It was hard to make out, but Anne was freaking out because her daughter wasn't dilating properly and the baby was fairly big. In addition, I caught something about blood pressure before Anne took off out of the kitchen. I found out later she left work early. She'd been terrified that she was going to lose both her daughter and grandbaby. All I could do was look at my manager, with both of us standing there in the knowledge that maybe we had seen an actual omen. Thankfully, this story has a happy ending. Anne's daughter did have a few complications, but in the end, baby and mother lived. To my knowledge, they're still doing fine today. Still, the next time somebody starts telling me about their pregnant relative, I'll probably stay far away from eggs for a while after. If I can't help, maybe it's best. I don't even know. Well, folks, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons and share this video with all your friends. If you want to have more spooky stories more often, consider giving even $1 a month to my new Patreon page. And hit the notification bell, that way you can catch the next spooky video the moment it comes out. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all real soon.